Welcome back to another Non-Typicals podcast. I'm Eric. I'm joined by Corey, Garrett, and Alex today. I think today we're just going to go over each of these Alex and Garrett's kills from the archery season. It's been a pretty good year for the Non-Typicals so far. I think how many of us have punched a buck tag? Out of
Moss knows the numbers.
yeah,
Well, it was six in archery. Now Theron just killed his buck, last night in
yeah,
rifle. So now we're
yep,
up to seven.
yeah, 7 out of 10. I mean that's pretty good. So we still got three more to get their tags punched, so we can go 100% on the year. I see it happening. We got 2 weeks left. A
Got
little
a lot
under
more
two
than that.
weeks. Oh,
We
yeah,
got, we
plus
got
late
late
season.
season.
I forgot about late
I will
seasons.
say I'm the weak link. I think out of the group, so we might not make 100%.
You're good to go, Mossy.
You're gonna get one. You're gonna lay it down here soon. So we might as well jump right into it. Alex, you killed your buck first. So I mean, if you want to go ahead your video posted of your recovery. It's over on the YouTube. You guys can find us at the Non-Typicals on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Spotify. So, Alex, if you want to go ahead and just run down the story, give us the story and how it all played out.
You want me to jump in
Let's
season?
start- Yeah, let's do the season. Kind of when you started getting more action and stuff, and we can go from there.
Since week one. All right. Yeah. So this is probably one of my better years as far as honestly, it's probably my best season. It topped last year, maybe not antler size, but just the season in general, learning and getting on a lot more bucks. I didn't really keep track, but I bet you I seen more bucks this year than I did those, and a lot more bucks early season. But the biggest thing was for me this year, I'm normally a rut hunter, and I wanted to get on it in early October and see if I could get on more bucks in the early season when everyone says it's a lull. And that started out good for me, actually. Early in the season, I went out. It was the first week. One day I went out and I was doing some scouting around. Right before dark, I seen a good 10-point right by his bed. I didn't have my bow or anything. I was just scouting. I was on a four-wheeler. And I seen him, and I knew he was bedded right within that vicinity because he was just browsing around, and he was heading up towards the cut. So the next day, I actually went in there and was going to hunt above that bed. So I stayed out from that bed probably 120 yards, got everything set up. And once I was sitting there, I was like, nah, this ain't going to work. Got to be more aggressive. And that was one of the biggest things this year is just getting more aggressive with, especially in the early season. You don't have nothing to hurt then and just might as well go for it. So I ended up pulling that set. I was already running late because it was just an evening after work. And I was like, I'm going to push closer. I want to get within his bubble. So I snuck down a little bit further and snuck down this log road, and I seen a tree I wanted to creep up on. At this point, I knew I was within like 60 yards of the bed. So I got my first stick up on the tree from off the ground. And as soon as I got up there and got my second stick just about hung, I heard something crash out from below me. He was actually bedded probably, 40, 50 yards below me, and he kicked out. And the way this area sets up, he was bedded at the top third of a ridge. So what he did is he ran down like 60, 70 yards and stopped, looked back. He couldn't see me. I just stayed hid behind the tree. And he ended up just running that ridge out. And I was like, all right. Further down the ridge where I was at, it was a newer cut, probably only a 3-4-year-old cut. But down the ridge further, it bordered a real hard edge cut. It's actually a slashing, probably, 10, 12-year-old slashing. So it's, 30-foot treetops, but they're a bunch of little saplings. And I was like, all right, I wasn't just going to sit there after jumping them. So I hurried up, beeline down there that same evening. So this would be pretty much the third setup within a half hour to an hour. Got climbed up, and I wasn't even set up for probably 45 minutes. And I think it was like 5:45. Wasn't even really that close to dark yet. He came right up by me, and I was expecting him to come right to my right at 8 yards or right to my left at like 6 yards. And he ended up coming out, catching a four-wheeler trail, and it was 25 yards. I had range when I first got up in the tree. So I started to make the swing, and he was already through the hole at 25 and ended up going out to like 30, 35 yards and just feeding around. So that was the first close call with him. And then I seen him, one more time. He wasn't a huge buck, just a good, nice 10-point, definitely a shooter. And that was the first close encounter I had. And then forget what day it was, but it was, I want to say like October 24th, 25th, right in that time frame. One day I had off work, hunted the morning, didn't see anything. And I decided to go down in here below the house and do some steel hunting. Went down in there, had the decoy and stuff, and was messing around. Did a few setups, rattled, grounded, no action. Well, I was heading back towards the house, and there's a big grown-in CRP field, and it's bordered by woodlot of pines. And I was just creeping the edge of the pines up by the CRP. And behind me, where I just walked, I heard a loud crashing, and I heard the grunt, and here come a doe blowing through out of the CRP into the pines. And I just knelt down, and a nice 8, I think he's actually 9-point, come in behind her and was chasing her. And they did a circle, went out into the field again, and I can't see them when they're out there. So I was just sitting there, and I was like, oh, what do I do? I need to start making a move like towards where they ran. And they did the exact same loop again and came by me. So if I'd have been thinking a little bit quicker and got a little closer, I probably could have had a shot at him there on that second loop. But then, what's that?
I think, like, I know you told me this story before. You know, if I was still hunting and in that situation, I don't think I would have ever came to the conclusion, get to where they were when you saw them enter the field.
The first time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I would have never been like, oh, they're going to happen. It's going to happen the same way again.
Yeah. And then, so what I did then is they disappeared up the edge of that woodlot. They ran right up the edge. I didn't see him cut back into the CRP. So I crept up the edge, and I was creeping up there, and I seen him running towards me. I never seen a doe. He was coming right at me. And then at like 40 yards, he stopped and cut back out into the field. So at that point, I knew he was looking for that doe. He couldn't find her. She got away from him. So I went like another 40, 50 yards, and I set up behind this big pine tree, just shy where I seen him come down. Hit the doe bleat. I already had an arrow knocked. At this point, I had the decoy ditch. I didn't even have it. Hit the doe bleat and was looking around the pine. Well, I peeked around the backside of the pine. Here he come out of the CRP field and was coming right at me. And he came into 12 yards. And actually, I showed Ryan to set up yesterday. It was a pretty cool little area. But I was just standing behind. It was a big pine tree, enough to hide my body. I got the bow brought around the backside of the tree and kept the tree between him and I. Was coming right at me. Turned broadside at like 12 yards, but never stopped walking. Well, there was a little bit of pine brush from dead limbs and stuff laying there, and a couple pine trees. I was waiting for him to clear the other side. I actually drew back, and I didn't even think about it, but my wind was blowing towards the CRP, and he, as soon as he winded me, ran right out in that field, stopped, looked around, and then trotted off. So that was that one. And it was actually pretty cool. I checked the camera yesterday, and so when I went in there that day, I checked that same camera that I picked up yesterday, and I checked the camera, and then right after I checked it, he come through there with that doe. And then it was a half hour later when I had the run-in with him in the woods on the way out. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
Yeah. And then, let's see. After that, I didn't have any real close encounters. I seen a couple little bucks here and there. I was just doing a lot of, like, I don't know, just trying a bunch of new things, hunting buck bedding areas, and just where I found beds during like shed season or just out scouting around in the summer, setting up and trying to hunt them buck beds, giving them the wind and just trying to hunt off of it. And it seemed to pay off in a way. I mean, I had a lot more visuals on bucks. And then, oh yeah, I guess I did have the one that night me and you were out there, Giggles. When was that? What week was that?
Oh, I think it was towards the middle of October.
Yeah, it was right around that same time frame.
Yeah, it wasn't.
It was like October 20th, I guess. So that would have been before I had that run in here at the house, actually. That's that video I had of that buck that was bedded up with the doe out on the game lands. But yeah, I had him come in there and bed up at 60 yards. He didn't want anything to do with the grunt tube or anything, but they bedded there for like 2 hours, and they ended up he followed that down, and they got out of there, fed off. But after that, me and Googles did some steel hunting one morning, and we had a good encounter with a buck on the ground. He was within 20 yards, but there was no shot given there. And then after that, it's pretty much leads up to the old buck kill. That was November 9th. But yeah, I'm terrible with dates. I don't even remember.
Yeah.
Whenever I seen half of them bucks, like I know the first week of October is when I had that first encounter with that 10. And then, yeah, when a lot of the other ones were mainly October 20th and then right into November there. But yeah, I'll just jump into the buck story now. So yeah, it was November 9th, and what did we have that day? Northeast. It was like a southeast wind, and there's a slashing on the top of this hill, and I hunt right on the edge of where the slashing meets a newer clear cut. and it peters down over a pretty steep hill. And I like to hunt right on the downwind side of that slash. And if I get a good wind early morning, it's a good cruising spot to catch a buck cruising that downwind side of the doe bedding. So yeah, November 9th, I set up and was able to kill my second buck with the recurve. Southeast wind that day, so it was perfect to hunt the downwind side of this slashing. It was real good doe bedding. I had a cell cam there all early season, September through mid-October. No, it wasn't even mid-October. It was like beginning of October, and then it quit working, so I just put a regular cam in there. So for some reason, it had service for like 3 weeks, and I just lost service, and I couldn't get any service on it. But I put that cell cam in there and had a ton of does, and there were a couple good bucks, but none of the bucks that were actually hanging around there whenever it come to season, and none of them actually ever even came back as far as what I've seen on that cam since the last time I've checked it. But anyhow, it's perfect when to hunt that slashing that day. So I got out there, and I usually take my e-bike out there to hunt, and got everything ready to go. Got the e-bike unloaded and everything, and got my bow strapped onto the handlebars. I keep in these little grip things, like a gun grip, and started pedaling, and didn't my e-bike just shut off on me. So at this point, I was like, oh no, because the bike's heavy in general, and I'm in all my hunting gear, and I really didn't feel like pedaling back in there. But so I took it back down to the truck, tried to get it turned back on, messed with it for a little bit, and I was like, I got to get going. I'm already gonna be pushing it for daylight. So I pedaled a little bit, walked a little bit, pedaled a little bit, walked a little bit, made it the whole way back in there. And at this point, it was like gray light. By the time I was fully set up, there was enough light I could have shot. Went all morning, didn't see a deer, and I checked the camera on my way, and I pulled the SD card and checked it when I got up in the stand because I walked right by it. And I had bucks that were cruising by there. It was at 10 in the morning before the time changed back. He was coming through his logs like 10:14, right around there. So I was sitting up there, and I almost got down out at like it was like 8:30ish, and I was like, nah. I was like, I better just stay. I said, anything can happen. This is a perfect spot. And I hear a lot of guys say how they feel like a lot of them bucks get up on their feet around 9 o'clock and start cruising, looking for those does that are already laying down. So I sat tight, and what you know, it was like 9:05, 9:06, 300 yards down the ridge. I just seen a buck round the slashing. I could see horns in my naked eyes. So I was like, all right, it's shooter. And there's a tram road that comes the whole way across to me, and like 60 yards in front of me, it wise off right whenever before it gets to where I was set up at. So, and right where it wise off, there's a big scrape right there. It was getting hammered. It's actually in the video. That's the one that you, I think, looked down and showed in the video, Moss. But yeah, he came the whole way across there. Didn't have to do anything the whole, like I thought for sure, because there's a couple other tram roads like intertwined with that one across there, but that's like the main one. He stayed on it, and it was within minutes. He was right over there, just a steady walk the whole way over. And when he got to where that scrape was, where the road Y's off, I needed him to come. I was on the lower Y on the road. He ended up going up the upper Y of the road. So at that point, I was like, all right, I need to get the grunt tube out. I had my bow in hand, and I was ready for him on my weak side, because that's my weak side. I don't know. I feel pretty strong with it. I'm comfortable in that spot. Honestly, it might sound weird, but that's where I was expecting the deer, my main shot, to be. And so I grabbed the grunt tube, just kept my bow on that side, and I grunted at him and made it sound like it was coming from down over the hill behind me. And I had it was a big ash tree that I was in. It was deader than a doornail. Moss seen that. But it was a big enough tree that I kept it between him and I. Well, I made that grunt sound like it was coming from down over the hill behind me. And he picked I just did a little grunt to where he heard it, and he looked down, and he just, you could tell he had that look in his face. He walked down probably like 10, 15 yards and stopped and was just like looking around. He put his head down, sniffing, and I did it again, just one little grunt down over the hill behind me. And it was just instantly, he came just prancing right down there. Well, we come down, and that tram road I walked in, I stayed on the left side of it the whole way in, because the deer normally walk right down the right side of it to keep tight on it. Well, he was cutting across that tram road. So when he hit the left side of it, it was like 18 to 20 yards. When he hit the left side of that, he put his nose down, and I had a feeling he was catching my ground scent, which I'm sure he probably was, but he was coming over there to look down over the hill for that other buck. And I was able, whenever he put his head down, I was able to hurry up, bring my bow, my recurve up over the tether, draw back, anchor, and it wasn't really a blur, honestly. It was a pretty controlled shot. It felt good. And the shot, he ducked into it a little bit, and I thought it hit him perfect. And then he ran down the hill, and then he started to loop back up the hill, and then he just like stop. He'd walk a little bit, stop, and this all happened within like 30 seconds. He'd walk a little bit, and then he went up into this spot. I couldn't see him. There was a big beech tree that still had all the leaves on it. He went behind it, and I didn't hear anything for like a minute, and then I heard a branch break, and then I heard a little bit of leaves kick around. And at this point, I had myself second guessing because I thought I smoked him, and then I seen him walk like that, and I thought for sure that it didn't hit where I thought it did, because I thought I hit him in the heart, and I thought there was no way he'd have been coming back over the hill. Like, he'd have been dead by now. So I was second guessing myself. Called you guys. I know I called you, Moss. You took off work and come out, and I decided just to sneak out the opposite way where I came in, get back out to the truck, and head back to the house. Went back to the house, waited on Moss. I shot him. It was a little after 9. What time did you get to my house, Moss?
I think 12:31.
12:31. Yeah. So I gave him quite a bit of time. And then when Moss got there, I had the four-wheeler loaded up in that, and we headed back out and went in right to where I shot. Didn't see any blood, so I decided I wanted to walk up to where I last seen him because I didn't want to bump him. If I had followed the blood trail, I'd have come in from below, and I didn't want to bump him up into the slashing. If anything, I just wanted to bump him down into that more open clear cut. So I snuck up there, jumped up on a log. We found the arrow, and we were like, oh man, that arrow didn't look good. But I knew I had a passer because I could see the hole on the other side. I could see blood coming out whenever he turned into that U and was walking back up the hill. I could see the bright red blood. There was a lot of it. And so we were like, oh, all right, we'll just leave it lay here. And at that point, Moss even said, he was like, yeah, that arrow had me worried when I seen that. But I ended up walking up to where I last seen him. There's a log. I jumped up on this log and was looking around. I didn't see anything. I was just standing there scanning. And then all of a sudden, I could see his tail peeked up. He just like face planted into like a deadfall that was laying there. And I lost that. There he is, buddy. Couldn't believe it.
I mean, one thing that you didn't say, but I know it was in the video. Not only that, you told me when I came up and saw your buck that I thought was funny was your main arrow that you were going to shoot that buck with ended up, what, 15 feet below you in the ground?
It happens every time I go hunting. Every time I go hunting, that happens. I was gonna try out a big 2-inch cut, and every time I go hunting, I have a spring rest. I don't have anything to hold my arrow on there, so it don't take much. If I bump my bow the slightest bit, my arrow will just spin off that rest and boom. Every time I go hunting, there's times you'll see 2 of my arrows sticking in the ground.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that definitely. I was with you the one time you came out to bear hunt with me out on the farm, and you put your one arrow in, and it was windy, and it fell.
Garrett, I'm pretty sure
and it fell.
Garrett, I'm pretty sure I did it this year whenever you and I went out to Old Turtle Bay.
Oh yeah, you did. It fell the whole way down to the ground.
Yep.
I was like, it was so quiet. I was like, ouch.
Yep. Every time.
Yeah, I know one part that, like, obviously you called me. I came down to do recovery, and when I was wrapping up my stuff at work, you called me again. I'm like, oh, maybe you found it already. And you're like, hey, I noticed something really weird with what right after the shot. He did almost like a gargle or a roar. I don't know how to take that. My first impression that's a good sign, but like, what was going through your mind when you started to realize like what the hell actually happened there? Because like, you normally don't hear that.
Yeah, I'm actually glad you brought that up, because once again, that's something I would have left out and completely forgot about till later, whenever the podcast is over. But yeah, whenever I actually shot, he was not alert at all. He had his head down and was sniffing. And they say they'll react a lot more when their head's down, but I mean, I believe it. They say they duck more just because of the way their head has to come up or whatever. And I do believe it. But whenever the arrow hit him, it was just like a deep, it was so weird, and it was so loud. Like, I was on one hillside, and you could see the other hillside 500 yards away, and I guarantee you could have heard that over there because the woods were so quiet that morning. But I don't know if it was just, I think it might have just like caught him so off guard. You know what I mean? Like, he had no idea what was going on. He had no clue what even happened.
Yeah, I kind of thought like maybe like instant coagulation within his arteries and stuff, or his backing up in his lungs and he was just spitting it up real loud. But even when we like gutted your deer, like there was a ton of damage where the impact was and whatnot, but like the lungs and stuff weren't like hemorrhaged, and it wasn't nothing crazy, you know what I mean, to make it do something like that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think it almost just like caught him off guard. And I don't know if he was like taking a deep breath in, trying to get a whiff of my scent whenever it hit him, and it just I don't know. It was weird. I've after that I looked it up, and there's a lot of guys that have had it happen to them. They've heard it, and I know people that have heard it after telling them my story. But that's the first time I've ever heard it. It was so loud though. I was like, holy cow! It was just like a really aggressive, loud grunt, but it was like an uncomfortable grunt.
Yeah, and now that I'm thinking about it, like my first buck I shot right in the neck because I was 13 and taking stupid shots and whatnot. But I thought he was dead. I walked up to him and he like takes his last breath and he shakes his head and he kind of did something like that. So maybe it was the last breath or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I just wish I would have had that on video just to listen to that again. It was crazy how loud it was.
I just have one question. I mean, it backtracks quite a bit, but you say shooting on your weak side. How it's got to be difficult to move over your tethered with that long bow. That what is it, 66 inches?
Yeah,
Like I couldn't imagine doing it with a 32-inch compound, let alone a 66-inch recurve.
It is a pain, especially when you have deer that close. Thankfully, he was angled enough to where he like even his peripheral. I was in probably like the 40% zone that they couldn't see, to where I was able to get it up over. But he was. I honestly think he was on my side. If I would have waited much longer, he could have just like turned and snorted. Not even snorted, just blew off a little bit, ran back. Because I had a feeling he smelled me. But no, it's a pain trying to bring that thing over. I had to do it in my Indiana doe video too, the one that's on YouTube, and that's what some of the guys in the comments even said. That looks like a pain. People said, how'd you do that? I had good cover. I was able to get away with it, but it is tough.
Yeah, it always seems like you practice quite a bit with your equipment. Like not even like a month before season. Just you're always shooting your bow. You're always climbing up your saddle and stuff like that, and you're making sure you're 100% comfortable.
Yeah, one thing I didn't do a whole lot of this year was shooting like out of a saddle. But whenever I'm hunting, my setups are not super high. I mean, Mosh, you've seen my setup. I wasn't even 15 feet. I'm probably only chilling 12, 13 feet 90% of the time. I don't get super high, and that's just I feel more comfortable with the recurve, staying lower. It's just all about the cover. I didn't have on my ghillie suit that day, but a lot of times I'll just wear like my ghillie suit top, and I think it breaks me up quite a bit.
Right. And I think what is really beneficial for you is you can pick up on deer movement really quickly and you can almost pattern the direction the majority of the deer is going to come from. So like my biggest issue this year is like I'll set up where I think the deer's coming. So like obviously you're facing where you think the deer's going to come from. And then they end up coming from your left or right or from behind you. And then they're seeing that space in between you and the tree when you're in the saddle.
Yeah, that is one thing. And don't get me wrong, there's multiple times that I've been caught off guard or awkward where deer have come in where I didn't expect them from. That hunt was literally like that's what I pictured happening all morning, even the night before. Like that's why I went there, was the picture just a buck cruising right down that ridge. I had the perfect wind for it, and it just all happened to work out perfect that time. There has been times I've had deer come in behind me or something, and like you said, you stick out like a sore thumb, especially when I'm that low. If I have a deer coming behind me and I don't have a whole lot of cover behind me, if I'm using just the tree itself, you're pretty much, I mean, you're going to get picked out.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, back to like you said, when I saw the arrow, what was going through my head was like, oh, like
Yeah,
not a whole lot of blood. There was some fat and white hair, and you explained to me white hair doesn't always mean a bad shot, blah blah. But the thing that we really picked out was that your arrow was broke 4 or 5 inches past the broadhead. Yeah, right there he is.
Still has hair on it.
So we're talking maybe even 6 inches. So that was the indicator we picked up that it more likely went through his body and his opposite shoulder broke it.
Yeah. So the fletchings would have never actually entered the cavity. But yeah, I'd say, well, it definitely did, because remember it come out like dead center of that opposite shoulder.
Yeah, I mean, once we recovered the deer, it was like 100% absolutely perfect shot.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, yeah, I knew you were obviously waiting when Moss told me that he texted me and he's like, Yeah, Alex shot a buck. I'm just leaving work and going down. He doesn't know how good of a shot he made. Now, with me knowing you and how much I know, you shoot more than with just me, but we shoot all the time, all year round. So I knew you when it comes to moment time, you always pinwheel stuff because that's just how you are. But and then I come up and saw your deer after work, and I said, "Why'd you even wait?" Like right away, you can looking at the shot placement, you knew it was picture perfect. Like you literally couldn't have asked for a better shot.
Yeah, I think a lot of times that you just see that one little thing, it makes you second guess yourself. So then you start doubting yourself, and when in doubt, back out. And I've learned that lesson the hard way because there's multiple times I remember being 14, 15, shooting one, not even hitting the thing good, and just running after it. Like, not even giving the thing time to run off, just being stupid about it. And I've lost I hate to say it, but I've lost a lot of nice bucks doing that stuff, just pushing them, not giving them the time. But, even if it's a gut shot or, a liver, I just want I don't know. I just didn't give them the time. I just get too excited to let my adrenaline get the best of me. But they're dead deer. But then you push them, and you don't know where they're going to go then.
Yeah, I mean that second guessing, I think it happens to everyone. You pinwheeled them, but you think about it for 2 extra seconds. You're like, well, maybe I didn't. I don't know if that was that good, and you start to get that doubt and panic in yourself.
Yep, happens to the best of us. But what now? We gonna jump into a giggles story? Or you got something, Moss?
I had one thing, and I was
Go
not
ahead.
to toot my own horn, but like that week I took off. Well, I took off for yours, and then Cody's. We were going down to work in that area, so we just swung by and helped him out. Um, I think what really helped with both yours, like Cody's, was a very awkward shot. The footage showed something that was way off, and like yours, we obviously didn't have footage of, so we weren't 100% sure. But you still kind of had that little bit of doubt in your mind. But with me coming down, that kind of like gave you and Cody a reason not to just jump in and go track it. So maybe that's a tip for everyone else. Like, hey, call up a buddy that you know is busy and make plans with them so you don't run out and jump a deer.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea, honestly. It definitely. I mean, if you wouldn't have came, I'd probably been out there an hour earlier, probably. Anyhow, yeah, probably about an hour earlier.
And that deer would have been 100% dead then.
Yeah,
But
that's what I
it's
mean.
just that fact that
Yep.
you don't know.
Yep, he was definitely dead within a few minutes after the shot. Anyhow, he was pretty stiff whenever you and I got there.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, so is that. I mean, it sounds like you had a hell of a season this year, Alex. As typical, you always do. It paid off, 2 recurve bucks back to back. Not many people can say they can do that, but I never had a doubt in you. I know how you have the grind, you have the willpower, and I mean, you definitely put the work in. So, I mean, it all pays off in the end. So, I think we're gonna move over here to Garrett, and we're gonna let Garrett give a little bit of his season recap real quick, and then dive into his buck story too. So, Garrett,
Yeah,
if you want to.
if we have time, we can do the Indiana one, but maybe we can jump into the Indiana buck another time.
Yeah, either way.
Yeah, like
So,
Giggles take over. He needs to talk to them.
yeah, Garrett, if you want to go ahead and let's dive into your recap here.
Yeah, I didn't really ask a whole lot of questions there because I was just so into detail of everything he was saying, trying to remember, learn from the conversation. But so I went out and had a great first day. Actually, probably one of the best first days I've ever had. Same with Alex. I've always really kind of stunk at the early season hunting, so I kind of wanted to get a little better at that this year. And I think me and Alex, we always are out doing stuff together. So thinking, talking a lot, and discussing this stuff really helps you uh, almost learn from each other, build off each other. Almost, it's a lot easier to do with someone else than just going out on your own. So we really build each other up really well. So I'm glad that I have him there to be a friend there for that because it's really awesome. So me and him both kind of went out there with the same idea to get better at early season. And I had a great first day. I went out, saw 2 nice bucks in the morning. Kind of went out ground hunting, trying to find out some new spots. Had a lot of nice trail cam pictures early season, so that had me pumped. And I was planning on going to every spot that had a nice buck. And the first morning I went and ground hunted a spot, 2 bucks. I came up on them, and they were bedded at about 60 yards. I didn't see the other one. It was farther back, and I stood up, and there was a buck about 30 yards away, bedded down. And I had my ghillie suit on. It covered me up a little bit, but there was a lot more eyes there than what I thought. That's for sure. Because 4 seconds later, I see about 6 tails going the opposite way. So it wasn't great, but I was at least on big bucks. Like, I had an idea where they're at that evening. It wasn't too hot.
And that was Garrett. Wasn't that the spot that me and you scouted like the last time we scouted together?
Yes, it was.
Literally, we were walking down that spot, and you're like, right here. This is where they're bedding. This is where they're gonna be, and you were spot on.
That's where they were at, but they didn't stay there long. I ended up getting some. Well, me and Moss actually ended up getting some more pictures of them later on in the season. We lost a couple of them, but there were still a couple sticking around. I honestly never got back up there to hunt it. I hunted it twice, I think. Second time I went up there, I saw 2 cars, and I'm one of those people that I don't like to hunt where other people are at. It's like one of my golden rules: never hunt where other people are at. And if they're signing stuff, and they're still in there, but it's just better to get away from people. So I ended up going back in there and not seeing a deer. Our cams are still out there, actually.
They're probably not there anymore, seeing as though rifle season's in and bear season already went through, but who knows?
Hey, I've pulled a couple of my public land cameras, and they're still there, surprisingly, chips and all. And they weren't even in the trees, because I started putting some of mine up at least 4 feet, 5 feet, or pretty high, actually, probably like 8 feet. And
Garrett, hold on real quick. 4 or 5 feet. You're 6
I
feet.
know.
You're 6'5" yourself, and you get on your climbing stick.
I know.
You could one stick to 15 feet like it's nothing.
Yeah. Okay, more like 6 yards. How about that? But I've had them up higher, and I've had less problems with it. For sure.
6 yards now?
Pretty high, whatever.
You mean 6 feet, not six yards.
Now I'll go with 3 yards. How about that? That's 9 feet. That's about right.
That works.
That's about right. I'll measure it next time. I'll take a ruler and I'll make sure I send it in on tip. So I had a couple other spots that had some good bucks. So I actually asked one of the other non-typical members. I think it was the second day of archery. I had a really first good week, and then I just kind of had a little drought there. But second day, I asked Hunter Uplinger to go out with me. We went up into this clear cut, and I had a good idea where these deer were bedding on. It was like a sharp hill, almost like a wall, like a high wall. And the wind the thermals would pull down over the hill. So his back, he could see pretty far out in front of him, because it was a clear cut. It was a pretty new clear cut, about, I don't know, 3-year-old clear cut.
Probably 3-year-old cut, roughly. Yeah.
3-year-old cut. Alex has been in there with me before. It's about 3-year-old cut. And we legit were so loud getting in the tree stand, but luckily it was a windy day. We got up around 3 o'clock, sat there for about 10 minutes. It was probably 3:30. Sat there for about 10 minutes, and I thought Hunter was screwing me. He was like, "Big buck, big buck." I was like, "Shut up." Well, I looked behind me, and about, I don't know, 95 yards against that high wall where I thought they'd be bedding, I saw this buck stand up, and I was like, "Holy cow!" He stood up at 3:45, I believe, actually, and fed around just in that area for about, I don't know, 5 minutes, and then he was moving towards us. He got into about, I don't know, 75 yards. Like, it's super thick there. Could never shot. and I was just shaking. He was so far away, but he was a big buck. He was probably the biggest buck I've seen in a long time. And he started feeding the opposite way towards the thermals because they were pulling down over that hill, and I was sitting on the downwind side of him. And instead of coming towards me, he decides to turn around, heads up towards where the thermals are coming down off that side hill, just feeding, and then he beds down around 5:30 again. And this was first day, so we had daylight to pretty late. I think 7:15. I think about. Yeah. So he just bed down, got back up around 6 o'clock, started feeding up over the hill, and that was all I saw of him. And then I had nothing for, I think, a while. I did a lot of ground hunting, trying to find some new spots. Actually, my first ground hunt experience, or I had a good buck encounter. That was my next good buck encounter. I think it was probably October 20th. It was starting to get to where they were starting to hit scrapes. That's early yet, so not true.
No, it was like, which one are you talking about?
I went back into that same clear cut.
Oh yeah, that was like the 13th, 14th time frame.
Yeah,
Whenever you had that encounter on the ground, yeah.
Yeah. That was my next big nice buck experience, and I was ground hunting again, trying to figure out the spot a little bit more. I went up in there, saw I think 4 deer on the way up in there, and I was like, wow, I think it might be a good day. It was raining, pouring, so my my sound was down, so they couldn't really hear me because of the rain. And I got to the spot where I could look up over that high wall where I saw that buck bedding, and I was like, well, I had my rattlers and grunt tube with me, and so I was looking over this high wall. I had my decoy also with me, so I sat it up about 10 yards upwind of me because I was hoping if something was to circle down wind of me, I'd be a little bit closer to it. Well, I forgot there was this trammer that came up over the hill to the left of me where my decoy was at, which it was actually good because my wind was blowing down to the right of me, and when I grunted, I saw this deer stand up, and it was probably 145 yards away, and I was like, wow. I was like, what is that? So I pulled out my binos. It looked like a big body deer. Pulled out my binos. I saw it was a nice 8 point, really wide. And I was like, I was pumped. I saw its dark horns, and whenever I see a buck with dark horns, I just instantly almost think that's a good buck. I don't know what it is about it, but I just think it's instantly a good buck. So he wasn't doing anything. He just almost looked back at me. I think he made eye contact with the decoy to the left of me. He stared at it for about, I don't know, 3 minutes. It felt like a long time at least. And I grunted again. He kind of turned towards me a little bit, but he didn't really show any interest. Like he wasn't moving, he wasn't walking. He just turned to get a better visual at the decoy or whatever. And then I was like, well, I better try something like a rattling or something because I had my rattlers. I had to try something. He just didn't seem like he was aggressive enough. So I rattled. As soon as I started rattling, well, I kind of looked down at my rattlers to rattle and stuff. I looked back up. He just started right towards me. He was beelining me. But that high wall was super high. It's a clear cut too. It's super thick. So like there was deadfall in front of me. So he was gonna go downwind of me to get to me, or go to the left up that tram road that was upwind of me. Well, as I was rattling, I didn't want to just stop rattling, so I had to rattle a little bit. And I was watching him come towards me at this time. And he got to about, I don't know, 70 yards, 60 yards at the bottom of that, almost to the bottom of that high wall with the thicket. And I was like, well, I'm gonna stop rattling. I sat my rattlers down, and then he started going towards that trammer that came up to the left of me. And he was at like, I don't know, 50 yards. He started going up that trammer. Got to like 45, started closing the distance. And I was like, well, I could shoot him now or I could just wait because he looked pissed. He had his ears tucked back. He looked pissed. Like I thought he was guaranteedly coming to beat the shit out of my decoy. So I was like, I'm just gonna wait till he comes up. I was like 20 yards, chip shot. Well, little did I know this little freaking scrub buck 7 was gonna come up from behind me because he heard me rattling, and I heard something coming behind me. I was like, crap. I looked behind me. What did I see? A nice little 7-point staring right at me about 20 yards. And I just knew my hunt was just about to be ruined. And he snort wheezed. I looked back.
He didn't snort wheeze. You always say he snort
Oh,
wheeze.
yeah. He
He
freaking
snorted
blew.
at you.
He snorted at me. He snorted at me.
Garrett
And,
texted me the other day. He said, little 7-point coming, told me the story. He said, the little 7-point coming behind me, snort wheezed at me. Guess what happened then? I said, probably pissed that big buck off. He probably come in. Nope, he ran. I said, you snort wheeze or blow at? He's like, oh, blow, my bad. God love you, Garrett.
oh, yeah. Sometimes you just say the wrong words, you know.
I know.
But I turned around and Buck was gone, and that was the end of it. Well, I thought that was the most awesome hunt. So from there on out, I did a lot of ground hunting, probably until, honestly, the week I killed my buck. I ground hunted until about the week I killed my buck. I was just trying to cover ground and figure out some bucks. And I don't know. I kind of trying to figure out the new way of hunting in a way. And I think, let me think. Oh, I had one other nice buck come in to a clear cut. When was that? I think it was the same day that maybe it was the day before. Same day before Alex and me hunted the same cut. So late October.
Yeah, it was towards the end of October.
Yeah. We hunted the same cut and I had a nice 9-point come out. But the does just got me, so it wasn't really. It was a quick hunt there too.
Honestly,
Nothing
Garrett,
too.
that wasn't end of October. Whenever you and I had that encounter off the ground with that buck in the swamp bottom that I told about in my story. It was the beginning of November when that happened. It was like 1st, 2nd November whenever that happened to you.
Yeah, it must have been.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, then I know the first Monday. No, yeah, November 1st. I went out with my rattler horns and grunt call, and that was the week before my vacation. Or no, November 6th it was, because it was the week before my vacation. I went out, and I was like, well, me and Alex been seeing good sign in this one clear cut, so I was kind of. We saw. You didn't tell the story about the buck in the swamp, did you? Me and you on the ground.
I didn't say much about it. I just said that's the one that you and I ground upon, and we had it like 12 yards.
Yeah. That's actually. I'll go from there to my buck kill.
Yeah, because that leads. That's what helped you find the area where you actually ended up killing your buck.
Yep, 100%. So me and Alex ground hunted one day a clear cut that we always hunted. We started hunting last year a little bit together, and we went down into this swamp, and we saw this. It was a nice 7 or 8 points. Solid buck.
Yeah, he was just all. We didn't get really get a good look at the points. He was at least like 17 inside. He was a nice buck.
Yeah, solid buck. We actually got down in this creek bottom, started sneaking up it, trying to just calling here and there, or calling. We called a couple, I think twice or so.
We were getting ready to call right there, remember? And I was like, I have to go a little further.
Yeah, and we sat against this bank for a little bit, talked our game plan a little bit. Alex looked up and he saw 2 does just sitting there. He's like, Garrett, don't move. And I was like,
Yeah.
what the?
I peeked right up over the way the creek was set up. There was a bank that ran up the right side of the creek, and it was honestly like just a levee, and it was like probably an 8-foot bank, and we were just on the side of the bank, and I like peeked the top of it, and there's 2 does, and they had me pinned. We were climbing the deer trail. They were coming on. They had me pinned, and they took off. So I was like, oh man. I was like, now what do we do? And that's when we were just sitting there BSing.
Yeah. You can actually tell this because you actually were the first one to sight it, and then I'll just jump in from that.
Yeah, so I peeked up over and I seen them 2 does, They had me pinned, and they took off, and they ran straight away from us. So me and Garrett were sitting there talking. I was like, I was kind of just like laying there on my side, and you were just sitting there. We were looking on the maps, like we're seeing if we wanted to just keep sneaking up that creek bottom, which that was our plan. So we were sitting there, and I just like happened to look up. I had a weird feeling. I honestly had a feeling like something like that was going to happen because it was like prime time, like they're running around. And I looked up, and here all I seen was horns and a buck. He was coming parallel with us, right to where them does were, and he was on a mission. He was just doing the old trot. He had his mouth wide open. He coming from us. I thought he was going to come right down the deer trail right at us, but what he did was he was on them does. He did the exact thing them does did. He got in there, smelled them, and boom, right on their trail. He didn't run or anything. He never seen us. He just like a dog right behind him, right on their trail, and he was gone.
Yeah, and after that, I actually looked on my Onyx and saw the terrain kinda. And we actually, when we were in there, we kind of noticed that clear cut. There was another clear cut next, or select cut, not a clear cut.
On the
A
opposite
select,
side of the creek, which we've never been on.
yeah, on the opposite side of the creek that we've never been on. So I was like, it looked like great bedding area. Just a lot of treetops for them to really hide in, but see far yet.
They didn't pull
So,
much timber out of there. They left a lot of it behind, and they cut some big trees.
so I kind of started my actually first day of vacation just basically ground pounding that area. Went in there. There's another swamp on the other side of this clear cut. So it's basically a swamp, a clear cut, swamp, clear cut, or select cut, not a clear cut, select cut, then a swamp again. It's kind of,
Yep.
and then the swamps kind of connect also. So it's kind of like just a big,
So just a big hub, really.
yeah, thick area basically with great bedding, food, everything they need. And went in there, saw some rubs, saw some nice terrain that I like to kind of pinches, kind of like to hunt. So I went in there, went in there the next day, ground hunted, and went in there about 300, 400 yards off the road. And I was like, I had my grunt tube and rattlers, started seeing rubs and a thicket, and I was like, well, I might as well try to grunt and rattle. You never know what's going to happen. It sounds ridiculous, but like when I go into somewhere new, I just like to freaking make a whole bunch of noise. And it was honestly perfect time because I rattled, and then not even 10 minutes later, I see this buck to the right of me running up through this not clear cut, but just a thick top actually. And he was like 40 yards away. He freaking pinpointed me right away. I was on the road still. I was being stupid about it, to be honest. Well, that was good knowledge because I know those deer like to travel that thicket. So I went in there the next day, sat there, saw, I think, 4 or 5 does, a scrubby 8, and I was like, well, there's deer in here, just not the ones that I was after. So I just kept on pushing in. Day 2, I pushed in another 2 miles. Got down by the swamp where I originally wanted to go, and didn't actually see a deer. I saw there was so much sign, and I was like, I can't give up on this spot yet. I only gave it 2 days. Went in there on day 3, a little bit farther, different spot. Ended up seeing, I think, 9 does. I ground hunted that day. Went in there, saw 9 does and a nice buck on the ground. He just didn't want nothing to do with me. Actually, this buck was along this clear cut. So this knowledge is what made me decide where I was going the next day. I saw this buck. There's this clear cut in there, and there's a nice, about I don't know, 8-year-old cut, super super thick, perfect doe bedding area, and it's on a north. It's on a north facing hill, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it runs almost the whole way down to the creek. There's a creek. It runs the whole way down to this creek. And then there's a swamp to the right of that. And that edge runs the whole way down to this next select cut. So it's just a perfect traveling. And then on the clear cut, there's this little pinch. sometimes I wish we had Onyx for this. Like I could just pull up it, but then people would be fucking all over it. Sorry, but there's this pinch, and I walked up when I was walking up through there on the way out. The one day, I saw this buck running that side of the clear cut, running right down into the swamp bottom, and I was like, well, I'm gonna go in there the next day and sit a whole day. I went in there the next day, got down, sat along the spot where I saw this buck, and well, on my way, actually, let's take it back. Walking in that morning, well, actually, every day that I walked in there, I kicked up these does around the same spot every day. I was like,
it was like an inside corner of the cut is right where you kept jumping at.
Yep. Kept on jumping these deer at the same spot every day. And I was like, what the heck? I was like, I could never see them because it was obviously dark. So I think there was does for sure the one day, and they could have been bucks there too, but I think it was a doe bedding area mainly.
And the day before you killed your buck is when you seen the one in your headlamp.
Yeah,
right?
I did see a deer with my
same
headlamp
spot.
on buck on same spot. So I sat that morning against that swamp edge, and didn't see a deer. Sat there till about 11:30, and I just had that gut feeling. I was like, "This is November 10th, actually." It was freaking. We had that cold front. I had a lot of deer signs. Saw a lot of deer during that cold front, and that day it was like 65. It was supposed to hit the 65, and I was like going into it really kind of discouraged. Like I was like, I missed my opportunity, but sat there till about noon, and didn't see a deer. So I moved up the hill to where I was like, well, I'm gonna move up to the hill. I was like, I kick these deer out of the same spot every day. I was like, maybe I'll catch a buck cruising midday if I go up there because that cut, the wind, I looked on my Onyx and I saw the wind was blowing perfectly up towards where I kicked those deer out. And there's also this just natural like funnel almost that runs down over the hill along the cut to the swamp. And it's super thick in there too, so the deer feel really comfortable. I could only probably shoot 30 yards, and that's shooting through little pockets. So
Yeah,
I
where
got
you
up.
were at, you weren't limited. You were pretty limited on your shooting.
Oh yeah, it was small. No, not far shots at all. That's for sure. A lot of limbs. I got up in there moved spots around noon. Got up in there, saw this rub line, and there's this scrape actually up on the hill. I was sitting on it was a little bit of a bench, and there's a scrape above me. It hasn't been hit probably 3 or 4 days. I just saw the limb snapped off. Didn't really think anything about it, honestly. And sat there about 2 or 3 hours, and I was like, I'm just gonna sit here till dark. I had nothing to lose. Playing on my phone. Didn't see anything. Well, I was hearing these squirrels all the time. And I was like, well, these stupid squirrels are getting annoying. Super quiet. Around 2:45, I was sitting on my phone, and I just hear something almost like trotting, running behind me. And I was like, well, that's not known as squirrel. Instantly in my head, grabbed my bow. First thing I did, grab my bow. I looked behind me. This nice 8-point starts coming running right down over the hill. Like he was on a mission. He was trotting. He stops at that scrape. And I was like, this is a shooter at this point. I was like, instantly. He stopped at the scrape about 20 yards up over the hill at me, perfectly parallel almost with me, because that wind was blowing out of that clear cut right into my face. And he came to the left of me, so I think he was running down along that clear cut trying to scent check for does, and that's why that scrape above me, he actually he didn't hit it, he just licked it and smelled it, and he was on a mission. And I was like, if I shoot him, he was at about 25 yards. I go, Matt. He didn't stop. I go, Matt, again. I was like, holy cow. He's about 19 yards away. I go, Matt. I shoot because he finally stopped, or he stops. I shoot. I see my arrow go right through him. He runs like directly under my tree stand, just pumping out blood. And I was like, oh yeah, he's dead. Well, then he gets to the bottom of the hill, and I heard a big thump. I was like, he hit something. I can hear some kicking around, and I was like, okay, well, I think I got him. I just couldn't see him go down, so called up Alex, and I think I called up a couple of people, asked them to come help me. I had a pretty long drag. It honestly sucked. It was like, I don't know, 1.6 miles or something like that, and of course the deer runs to the bottom of the hill. They never like to run up the hill. Ran the whole way to the bottom of the hill. Well, I take my tree stand out to the truck, found my arrow, saw my arrow was covered in blood, and I was like, that's good. Went out to the truck, left my arrow at the first blood because he started bleeding pretty instantly. And went to the truck, found Alex and Ryan were there waiting for me. I grabbed my headlamp thinking it was going to be a long night. I shot that buck around 3, by the way. Also,
Because I
3
needed to get
o'clock.
out of there by 5, and I told you if you didn't get on the move, I was leaving you.
Yeah. So we hiked our butts back in there. Get to the arrow. We start looking for blood. We found blood for about, I don't know, 15 yards, and
You thought he was pumping out blood because you seen a little bit of blood on his fur, but we couldn't find any.
yeah, we found a little bit for like 10 yards there.
Yeah, not much, though.
Not much, but I thought he was pumping out blood because there was blood like go crazy on him.
You started getting sick.
I started getting sick, but I heard him crashing, some kicking around, kind of. I just wasn't guaranteed the like. You never know. I don't know. Adrenaline gets the best of you sometimes. So, well, we got in there, found a little bit of blood, and I was like, well, we gotta get out of here. I kind of wanted to get out of there before dark, so I was like, let's just go down to where I thought I heard it crash. Well, we started walking down over, looking for blood, and actually, I think Alex saw it first, and he's like, "There's your buck."
We were all pretty spaced out at that point. But yeah, I seen like 80 yards. I seen like 80 yards down in front of us there, piled up.
Yeah, we got down there. I was tickled pink, and then actually, whenever I heard that big thump, we got down there, and on the side of the tree, it was just covered in blood, where he almost hit the side of the tree, and then just died there, expired.
It was a huge tree.
It was about the extent of my season.
Well, that's pretty damn good season, Garrett. I know you've been texting me throughout the season a lot, and you were literally that day. You're like, I'm getting pretty tired of this stuff. I wish I could take a crossbow. I could have killed a lot of deer by now. And I was just like, no, just keep doing what you're doing. You're gonna get one. Literally, like 30 minutes later, you called me. He's like, hey, I got one.
Yeah,
what are the chances?
That is true. Maybe I should start saying I'm gonna go to the crossbow more often.
Seemed to work out.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a hell of a season. Definitely put in the work for it. It sounds like, a lot of ground and pound, and definitely paid off. I mean, it led you right to that spot to shoot that buck. So definitely paid off in the end.
Yes, for sure. It definitely did.
So, Garrett, was yours the biggest buck out of the group so far? Seemed like the biggest.
I don't know. It's hard to say. They're pretty all close. They're all pretty close.
Oh, they're all pretty
close to it.
Mine's definitely on the smaller end, but they're all pretty close in size, like a couple inches between all of us. If I had to guess, I mean, I don't think all of us have measured them officially yet.
I'd put a bet. Let's bet on it. Bet, man.
I ain't gonna bet on it. I know. I mean, yours is a good buck. Cody's is a good buck. Alex is a good buck. Like, they're all gonna be pretty close in there.
I agree.
That's what makes it, more of a fun bet when they're all so close.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to be the 16th higher?
I'm not gonna get in on the bet, but you guys can do that.
Why not?
What? You're so confident saying they're so close.
No, you guys are so close. I mean, I might take money on who's bigger. I'm not saying mine's in that running.
It don't matter. They're all great.
Yeah, they are. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, we've all of us that the 6 of us that have shot a buck so far, 7 of us that shot a buck, they're all really good bucks. Nothing to be disappointed about. I mean, obviously we're all in it, for the fun and for the chase, not for the antlers necessarily per se, but we only got the 3 or 4 more to get. And Moss, I have a feeling you're next, buddy.
I don't know. But one question
What
I
did you
had,
say about tomorrow morning, him killing a buck?
Yeah, I think tomorrow morning we'll be getting a phone call. Lay the hammer down.
tomorrow
good news.
morning,
I don't have to work tomorrow, so you need a tracker. Mm-hmm.
tomorrow morning I gotta go in at 5.
5 in the evening?
Yeah, 5 in the evening sounds like a plan.
Well, I might start my work, let it run, and then maybe I'll sneak out. My one question for Garrett is like, what was your reaction walking up to it? Like throughout the years, I get to see quite a bit of reactions, walking up on a buck, and honestly, that's like my favorite part of being involved with everyone's hunt. Like Alex's was pretty intense. As soon as he got up on that log and he was searching for it had to be only 5 seconds, and I'm like, all right, turned off the camera. I'm like, it's time to track. And as soon as I turned it off, I mean, he was fist pumping the air. He was pretty worked up, and I just love seeing that. So, what was your reaction, Garrett? Or maybe Alex can even get in on that.
Definitely pumped. I think me and Alex freaking hit each other's hands so hard that my hand was red.
Oh yeah, Garrett was tickled. We all, as soon as we seen it down there, because it's a good ways from us, we all just took off for it. Ryan hung back and radioed it.
Yeah, we ran down to it. I was super happy, just enjoying the moment. That's for sure. I was taking it all in and trying to remember it till next season. To be honest,
First, guess what Garrett grabbed first? Most people grab the horns. You know what Garrett grabbed?
The old nuts.
You got big nuts.
That's not a surprise.
I had to grab the horns before he did. I was tired of waiting.
Is that how you age him, Garrett?
Just my way of seeing if he's a mature buck or not. If you got big balls, he's a
Garrett
big
sees
buck.
if they drop yet.
Yeah.
So with both of you, what have you been doing since archery ended? I mean, it ended. Was it the 12th? Yeah.
No.
18th.
Or the 18th. Sorry. Yeah.
18th. Yeah.
What have you guys been doing? Are you still going out hunting with buddies, or?
I honestly think I've hunted about every day so far. Still, I have my girlfriend. I'm trying to get her one, and she's first year hunter. So there's definitely a lot of stuff I expect her to know because I'm just was raised into it. Like kind of almost a natural habit now. But learning with her it's fun. It's definitely fun, but
frustrating
at the same time.
Yep, been there, done that.
It's a good stress reliever, though, isn't it?
You could say that, maybe.
What'd you say, Moss?
I said it's a good stress reliever, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
I get to go outside, get outside, and still see deer. That's all I care about. You learn every day you're out there.
I've just been chilling. Once I killed my buck, that was pretty much it for me. Went to Indiana that 2 days later. Ended up killing one the opening day there with the inline, which we can touch on that on another podcast sometime. And after that, come back. And actually that whole week, I just kind of chilled. We helped guys drag bucks out, come back, took my little brother out for opening day here in Rifle. And other than that, I've just been chilling. Went for a walk yesterday with Ryan there before dark. He took his gun there, went and looked for a buck for him, scouted the little area out. Went for a walk with him. I've just been chilling, soaking it in, relaxing. Archery season stresses me out. I bet you I lose 10 to 15 pounds, honestly.
You're not the only one, dude.
Oh, yeah.
That's every year. I'm like, oh, God, I don't even want to put on my orange. But, no, I think I have a doe tag left, so I think I'm going to save that for late season. And I've been itching to buy a longbow, so I'd say it's probably going to happen within a week or two. And I'm going to try to kill a doe with a longbow in January.
So what's the major differences between a recurve and a longbow? I mean, I would almost say I would say I would claim you as a master recurve hunter by now. I mean, you're a pretty good dead eye. So what's the difference?
There's no master in it, but I'll take that. Thanks. But no, the longbow. So, like, if you look at the tips, a longbow, the tips, I don't have, all right. This works perfect. So this is a recurve. See how it curves back? Now, when I have a string on here, the string, whenever it's strung, will lay about 2 to 3 inches down this, nah, more than that, like 4 or 5 inches down this limb. A longbow, it comes straight off the limb like this. Limbs don't have as much. Can you see that? Instead of like this, it's like this. But a longbow doesn't have this much of a curve, you know, it's just more of a
Right.
yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, they I don't know, they're supposed to be more, I don't know, it's all, I haven't shot them enough. I shot one at Route 66 this past weekend, and it seemed really forgiving. It was a 64-inch Bear Montana at 45 pounds, and I picked it up, and the guy had just 2 junk arrows laying back there in the range, and I was just sticking that thing in the heart every time, like 12 yards. So, yeah, felt good. But I want to get one, and I almost bought one there. I was like, yeah, I don't want to buy a new one. I'll just get a used one. So I'm going to look for a used one. They're supposed to be more forgiving, though. And I don't know. They're nice. I like the one I shot. I like the feel of it. Probably not as smooth as a recurve, I don't think, though. Especially not like my Hoyt. I'm used to shooting my Hoyt, which is a carbon riser. So that ain't really.
So if you get a longbow, you saying buy a recurve, or are you gonna run with both and see which one feels better come season time?
I don't know. That Hoyt Satori is going to be hard to leave. That's a smooth shooting bow. But no, it depends. If I don't know. They all shoot the same, honestly, once you shoot them enough. Figure it out. Just on how you shoot it, really. But I don't know. I like the longbow. It's nice. I'll have to see, kill doe with it and see how it is.
So is there any like different techniques in like your shooting between a longbow and a recurve, or is it pretty universal?
Nope. I'll shoot it the same exact way I shoot the recurve. Same anchor, same everything.
Garrett, I got a question for you. I know you did at the sportsman show there. Whenever all of us went together, you bought annihilators. You end up shooting your buck with an annihilator, or?
Sadly, no. I had the 4-fletch arrows. I don't know if that's what was causing it, or if it was my inserts were already glued in, and I didn't line them up with my arrow. They weren't shooting good out of my bow.
I had them lined up for you when I came out and got them lined up for you. We got you sighted in. If I had to take a guess on what it was, not saying it's it, but it seems to be the running problem, is if your bow's not paper tuned, they don't fly correctly out of there for some reason.
Very well could be that, but honestly, Muzzy 3-blade, old reliable, probably been killed more deer than anything. That's what it got done with. Did you say something, Alex?
Yeah, I said that Muzzy did the job.
Oh yeah, got the job done.
So why do you think there wasn't much blood trail, Garrett?
Just a high hit with a high exit.
High
Not
hit.
a high exit, but like a mid-body exit.
Okay.
Honestly, when we were dragging it out, though, we ran across the blood trail on the way out. So
We seen a little bit more blood on the way. I mean, there was a stick that we walked by that was covered, but like the leaves and that weren't too bad. But it was definitely just because it was a higher hit.
yeah, I'd say
Because
probably.
your angle on it wasn't like super high, not like high, like bad shot placement. You were higher and then it come out like mid body, so it was a good shot placement. But it was just all the blood. I just don't think it really had time to, you know what I mean, to get up in the cavity yet the whole way to where it was spraying blood out.
Yeah.
He had a bunch of blood in him whenever you gutted him and dumped it out, though.
Oh yeah, he was all clotted up.
A little bit, yeah.
So, I mean, both you guys had a hell of a season. Congrats to both of you again on, killer bucks. Can't wait to see what next year brings, for you two and everyone in the group. Non-typicals, we've been killing it with buck tags. And I mean, I think this is the third time we've said it, but we got 3 or 4 left. We're going to let these 3 or 4 lay the hammer down, and we'll go 100% in the group. But
buck trains are rolling. We got to keep it
yeah,
rolling.
we got to keep it rolling.
Hear that, Moss?
We're shooting for 100%, Moss. But now, so make sure you follow us. Give us a like, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, and stay tuned in because we got more podcasts to drop here. So thanks for joining us.
Peace.